I'm in New York for the International Conference of Chabad Rabbis, and I heard a story that my grandfather shared with me before. Well, I heard many more details about this amazing story. There is 1984. There was a uh, decision in the Reform movement to put out a press release about Chabad and why they feel that Chabad is doing the wrong thing. And my grandfather, Rabbi Fogelman, shalom, had a very warm relationship with the head of the Reform movement in the United States, Rabbi Alex Schindler. And the Rebbe's secretary asked my grandfather if he's able to do anything about this. So he called up Rabbi Schindler, and as a result of the conversation, indeed, he did not. The Reform movement took that off the agenda, and they did not make any proclamation with trying to disparage people from associating with Chabad. And the story didn't end there. Shortly afterwards, my grandfather brought Rabbi Schindler with him to the Rebbe's farbrengen with his son. And it was a very inspiring event for both of them. Rabbi Schindler's son shared how the Rebbe singled him out, not only his father was head of the Reform movement, but he singled him out as a person, as an individual, and just felt the warmth and the love. As soon as he walked in, he just felt so good. Rabbi Schindler and his son said they felt like they came home. This is very unusual because they felt like they were at odds with the Rebbe and the odds with the Chabad movement because they're Reform and conservative, and here is this whole and here they're coming to the Rebbe's farbrengen, and yet they were so welcomed and so embraced, and so he's very affected by this. At the end of the farbrengen, my granddad said to my grandfather, "Naya birurim," a new kind of impact. They were very much appreciated that the head of the Reform movement came there. And he said, "Naya berurim." This is amazing. What a great. My grandfather got a letter from Rabbi Schindler a little while afterwards, and he said to him, Rabbi Fogelman, it's probably better that you and I don't talk philosophy to each other, because I can't appreciate a movement that doesn't really consider me a Jew. So he has the letter. The letter says, how can I respect a movement that doesn't consider me a full Jew? So obviously that's not true. One of the principles in Torah is that once someone's a Jew, they are always a Jew. So my grandfather is very shocked to hear this kind of statement, and he asked the Rebbe what he should do to respond. And the Rebbe responded that my grandfather should try to do something about this. He should make an effort that to give that this kind of impression shouldn't be that way. He shouldn't think that way. And Rebbe actually was surprised. Is how could it be that he doesn't yet understand that he is looked at as a Jew and not anything less than that. So my grandfather decided to send a article to 100 different newspapers proclaiming the meaning of a Jew according to Torah, and how once someone is a Jew, they're always a Jew. It's an interesting edit that the Rebbe did to the article. In the article, if I remember correctly, he quoted Tanad Ve'el Rabbah. Tanad Ve'el Rabbah, it says that there are two things that precede creation, the Torah and the Jewish people. But which is higher, the Torah or the Jewish people? And when it says in Tanad Ve'el, you can't really know which one is higher. However, since it says that, so that clearly indicates that the Jewish people are higher than the Torah. So that's what he put in the article. But the Rebbe said he should remove that from the article because it will give people the impression that that they don't need the Torah. So although it's true that the source of the Jewish people is a place that's even above the Torah, but he shouldn't put this in the article because that will give people the impression that they don't need the Torah. The truth is that although the source of the soul is higher than the Torah, however, in order for a Jew to connect with God in this world, we absolutely need the Torah to do that. Anyways, that's what my grandfather did, and this had this profound effect on Rabbi Schindler until today. Rabbi Schindler passed away in 2000, and his son still warmly remembers the relationship and the connection, and how, as he remarked, what unites us is a lot greater than what divides us. That's the first I wanted to share. One more story. Rabbi Chaim Meir Bucket was a prominent Chabad rabbi who had a synagogue in East Flatbush here in New York. And I heard the story from his son, who lives in Chicago, Rabbi Levi Bucket, who said that there was a man who was going to make a wedding for his son, and he had a hard time raising funds for the wedding. So he went to many people, asking them to give him money for the wedding. But in order to inspire people to give him more money, he made up a story. He had 3 children. He was a Satmar chassid. He was a chassid of the Satmar Rebbe, and he had 3 children. But in order to make his story a little more sensational, Hasidic Rebbes in New York. This is many years ago. This was in the 60s. And he asked them all, and they all gave him large donations to help him make the wedding. And he told Rabbi Book that he also wants to go visit our Rebbe and ask our Rebbe for an audience. He didn't say why he wanted to visit the Rebbe. So Rabbi Book assumed in honor of the wedding, he wanted to get a blessing. So Rabbi Book said to you, so do you want to go in with, as customary, with the family of the groom and the family of the bride? He said, no, just an audience just for me. He didn't know what the reason was, but he said, okay, I'll try. When's the wedding? The wedding was a week or 2 away. It was very close to the wedding. And the Rebbe usually, in order to have an audience with the Rebbe, it takes a long time to arrange the audience. So it wasn't really something that would normally be done, but Rabbi Bucket called up the Rebbe's secretary, Rabbi Groner, and he said to him, is it possible for you to arrange an audience immediately for my friend? It's a close friend, and I want him to have an audience with the Rebbe. So Rabbi Bucket pleaded, he begged Rabbi Groner, and Rabbi Groner says, okay, you, Rabbi Chaim Meir, you're a prominent rabbi, you're asking for this, I'm going to do this. So, and when he left, he slammed the door open, out, and Rabbi Groner is wondering, is the Rebbe okay? I mean, the guy ran out of the building, and he was like so unusual. So he goes in to see the Rebbe. The Rebbe said, everything's okay, you can continue sending in the next person, but please give a message to the man who was just here that I have $1,000 check for him waiting in the secretariat for him for the wedding. All right. Rabbi Groner was a little bit unnerved, and he called up Rabbi Bucket and asked him, what's going on? Why are you sending me people who are so insolent to the Rebbe? So Rabbi Bucket said, what do you mean? What happened? So he told him. So Rabbi Bucket said that he's going to find out. He had the neighbor lived across the street. His name was Shmuel Zanvil. He went to Shmuel Zanvil's house. Shmuel Zanvil, what's going on? You asked me for an audience, and then you were so insolent. You never speaking to you and ran away from him. What's going on? So Shmuel Zanvil said that he gave his paper into the Rebbe. And again, the paper said that he has 10 children. We only had 3 children. So Rebbe looked at the paper. The Rebbe said, so these are your children. Looking at the 3 children. These 3 are your children. But who are the other 7? In other words, the Rebbe knew the divine inspiration that the people he said were his children weren't really his children. They were just made up names. So he was so taken aback that he was caught red-handed saying something which wasn't true, that he ran out of the Rebbe's room and he ran home. And so Buket understood why he was so embarrassed. But the next day, Rabbi Groner called Rabbi Buket. He said the Rebbe wants to know if the check was picked up already. Has the check been picked up? And the check wasn't picked up. Can you tell the guy to please come back to the Rebbe to receive the check. But the guy was too embarrassed. He didn't want to go. So Rabbi Buchet sent one of his sons to pick up the check and to bring the check to this man. He was so mortified by his behavior. Show you one more contemporary story. We just blessed the month of Kislev, and this is a story that happened with the Rebbe's emissary to Pasadena, Rabbi Hanukkah. This story took place in 2016. He got a phone call from the mall that he had erected a menorah in this mall, and he got a phone call from the owners in the mall, developers, Diversified Realty, that they cannot allow them to put a menorah in the mall. It was close to Hanukkah, and he asked them, why can't you put a menorah there? And they said, because we can't have any religious symbols in our mall. So he asked them, you can't have religious symbols in the wall, so how come you have a tree? So they said the tree is for winter holiday. It's more of a public message. It's not like the menorah, which is a very Jewish religious symbol. So this went back and forth. They were saying that the tree is okay for this and the menorah is not. And Rabbi Hanukkah did not take this lying down. He first of all, he wrote a letter to the Rebbe and sent to the Oil and said, the whole purpose of this menorah being put in this public area is to fulfill the Rebbe's instruction to publicize the miracle and to do as much as you can, as far as you can, and he wants a blessing that they should be able to do this. Anyways, he called up the mayor, and the mayor was a Jewish man, a friend of, a non-Jewish man who was friendly with Rabbi Hanukkah, and he was pained by this, but he said, I can't do this. Do anything about this. This is their company. They could do what they want. He tried to call other places to put the public menorah lighting in Pasadena to be somewhere else. But the end is they didn't really have anywhere else to put it, and they decided they're going to make the menorah lighting in the Chabad house parking lot. So and they put that announcement out in the newspapers. In 19th of Kislev, he got a phone call from local papers. What happened was Rabbi Hanukkah had mentioned in his Torah class how this is really wrong, how they didn't allow him to put a menorah there. And he really felt that this should be something the newspaper should know about. So one of the women who comes to his class said, you know what, good idea. So she called the newspaper, said, what's going on? How come how come this can happen in Pasadena? They don't let the Jewish people put up menorah like the other religions put up their symbols. So newspapers called up Rabbi Hanukkah and said, this is a story. Can we talk to you about this? So he told the reporter, come to the Chabad Center at 3:00 in the afternoon, and he didn't have the regular menorah that he usually used to put out. It was too heavy. So he took out another old menorah and he put them into this. He took some lamps, electric lamps, to put them in the menorah, and only 8 out of 9 worked. And so when the news reporter came and interviewed him, they took a picture of him with this menorah that had one broken light. The next morning, on the 20th of Kislev, he sees on the headline of the newspaper a picture of him next to the menorah, and the headline says, "Menorah lights out." The menorah's lights are out; they're extinguished. And they wrote a whole article about the story and how the tree is allowed, but the menorah is not allowed. And they also publicized that the mayor was against this. And right after Hanukkah finished his morning prayers, he gets a phone call from KNX 1070, the biggest radio station in California, and they wanted to put this on the air at 8:30 in the morning. So they gave him they gave him 30 seconds to talk about what's going on. And as soon as he finished his interview on the air on the radio, he got a phone call from CBS, Fox News, NBC, and ABC, another television station, and they all want to talk to him. He said, okay, come to come to the Chabad house. So they set up their stations. Each news station set up in the Chabad house parking lot, and he went from station to station, telling each station his story. And it ended up being publicized in 5 television stations and 2 radio stations. There was even one television station that sent a crew to interview passerbys of the Chabad house. What do you guys think about what's going on? Anyways, what do you think about? You asked them, what do you think about this anti-Semitic deed that happened in the mall? They're allowing the tree, they're not allowing the menorah, and people were responding in these interviews like, I'm not going to go buy anything anymore in that mall. And this mall is not allowing the menorah. I'm not going to buy anything. And the owners of the stores were getting upset. They started to complain because the owner of the company that runs the mall is anti-Semitic. Therefore, we should lose business. So they this same television station sent a crew also to interview one of the biggest priests in Pasadena about this anti-Semitic incident. And he also was very angry. He says, how could you say that the tree is not religious? How could you say that? And so the story was going farther and farther out. So all of a sudden, guess who calls Rabbi Hanukkah? Yep. The vice president of Developers Diversified Realty calls him up and says, yep, we want to talk to you. So he tells the secretary, I'll call him back soon, I'm busy. And about an hour and a half later, when the story was already publicized everywhere, he talks to the guy. The guy says, listen, it was a mistake. I don't know how this happened. So what could we do to bring this menorah back to the mall? He says, listen, I already put publicity ads somewhere else. I already put out that we're going to do menorah lighting in the Chabad Center, in the parking lot. How much is going to cost to bring the menorah back to the mall? Says about $5,000. Okay. We got the $5,000 in order to bring the menorah back to the mall. Not only did they get it back in the mall, they put the menorah in the center of the mall, not like they had years before, which was in some side area. And he then, Rabbi Hanukkah, goes outside back to the news reporters and tells them how the victory has happened and they are going to have a menorah again in the mall. And to Rabbi Hanukkah's surprise, when he brings the menorah to the mall the next day, there are television crews waiting for him, and so they started to dance around the menorah to do something in honor of these television crews that want to hear the story. So by the lighting the menorah, the first time of Hanukkah, lots and lots of people came. Everyone heard about this. The conservative rabbi Pasadena came there as well because this has gotten out as something that's anti-Semitic, and they wanted to show solidarity with Chabad, that they're coming also to express their freedom of religion, and yes, they stand by the Chabad, they stand by the menorah. So it was a huge success. One of the yeshiva students got a little bit too excited. He saw the mayor at the event, and the mayor looks like a good candidate for a Hasidic dance. Took off his hat, put the hat on the mayor, and he picked the mayor up on his shoulders and danced around with the mayor. And the mayor's wife was a little shocked, and he had to get the boy to lower the mayor back on the ground. Anyways, the point is that Rabbi Hanukkah, he sought the Rebbe's blessing, and he saw the miraculous blessing of how, instead of this being something that was a negative thing, as the Baal Shem Tov says, there's a time of trouble for Yaakov. There's a time of trouble, and you're saved from the problem. The Baal Shem Tov says that the solution to the problem is created from the problem itself. That the problem itself is the source of the solution. And so, as we enter a new week, and the custom is on Saturday night, the Motzei Shabbat, to say, Al Tirei Avdi Yaakov, do not be afraid, my servant Yaakov. That's a custom. We sing this song on Motzei Shabbos as we enter into new week. Hashem promised us, don't be afraid of the mission you need to do. Doesn't matter where you are. I'm meeting over the Shabbos colleagues, all over the world, in the most remote places, and it's something that wherever we are, whatever we're doing, each of us is an emissary to share Torah and Judaism and inspiration wherever we are. And no matter what the darkness looks like, the darkness itself is meant to reveal a greater light, as the first night of Hanukkah. When do you light the menorah? As soon as it starts to get dark. Oh, now it's time to light my menorah. The darkness itself is meant to summon a greater inspiration, a greater light. It's very in sync. Last story, really. With this coming week. This coming week is the anniversary of the Rebbe's safe return home after his heart attack in 1970, Tashlam Meches, 1978, 77 actually. The Rebbe returned home after his heart attack, and before, right after the heart attack, which was on Shmini Atzeret, the Chassidim, you can imagine that this such a celebratory time, everyone's so happy, and now the Rebbe gets a heart attack, and all of the celebrations were just like it's all no one was celebrating anymore. It was they went from celebration to mourning and being very upset. The Rebbe had this heart attack, and the Rebbe said they should continue to celebrate Simchat Torah, and he said that he asked the doctor had to do an injection. He asked the doctor, what draws the blood? Does the needle or the vacuum? And the doctor says it's the vacuum that draws the blood. So Rebbe said to go out to the Chassidim and tell them how the vacuum actually becomes a source of new energy. That precisely because the Rebbe is not going to come out and he's not going to celebrate in the regular way, that actually naturally draws forth more energy and more excitement, because that, when your absence makes a heart grow fond, therefore it causes more of a celebration, more of a connection to why you're celebrating and what it's all for. So that's like the Baal Shem Tov taught us that from the problem itself comes salvation, and as indeed in Rosh Chodesh Kislev, miraculously the Rebbe had a revolutionary recovery, miraculous recovery, and went home the first time on the first of Kislev. So this Shabbos, this Matzah Shabbos that blesses the Rosh Chodesh Kislev, reminds us that whatever's going on in our life that's not the way that we want it to be, Hashem's salvation comes in the blink of an eye, and very often it's this challenge itself that we're experiencing, which is the source of bringing out our deepest and best self. And may we not have any more challenges, any more problems, and celebrate very soon Karav Mamish with Mashiach. It's happened tonight. Al Tira Abdi Yaakov, no reason to fear. Go to Yerushalayim, to Har HaBayis, to Beis HaMikdash, without any delay, even a moment. A good devach.